Chile, thousands of people defied a curfew and held a national post-banking protest. The COVID-19 death toll has surpassed 582,000 worldwide. Ethiopia has started feeling grand renaissance this Wednesday, a giant hydroelectric dam the country is building on the Blue Nile. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Ernesto Dominguez. In Chile, thousands of people defied a curfew on Tuesday and held a national post-banking protest, also known as Cacerolazo, to demand the approval of the bill that pauses the withdrawal of 10% of the pension funds. Demonstrators from various cities in the country took to the streets to demand the approval of the withdrawal of money from pension funds in order to handle the economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Protesters also rejected the attempt by Sebastián Piñera's government to stop the project through an aid package for the middle class, which poses multiple requirements and leaves out 70% of the population.
It is getting harder here to put food on the table. Soup kitchens are being opened in many places of our city. There are more than 15 soup kitchens working. People do not have enough money to pay basic commodities, and what the government does is getting more debts and giving 100,000 pesos bonds. In Chile, no one is able to live with 200,000 or 300,000 pesos. We have no way of working right now. Most men work in construction. Working women have lost their job, and the government has only defended companies. Today they come out and offer 500,000 pesos, but it never reaches the people. We now demand the return of the pension funds because it's our money. It's not a gift from the government. That money belongs to us, workers.
Cuba represented the Latin American and Caribbean region at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. During the virtual meeting, Cuba urged the international community to comply with the objectives set out in the UN's Agenda 2030, despite the current pandemic crisis in the world. Cuba's Minister of Foreign Trade, Rodrigo Malmierca Diaz, warned of the slowdown in economic compliance with the Millennium Goals following the impact of the epidemiological crisis. Malmierca also highlighted the work of the Caribbean region in terms of joint efforts to overcome the current crisis and achieve sustainable development. Former guerrillas from the FARC-EP are forced to leave the reincorporation zone in Santa Lucia, Utuango municipality in the face of multiple violent events. During the early hours of Wednesday morning, 93 ex-combatants who signed the peace agreement together with their families began their relocation to the municipality of Mutata. They claim that the forced and massive displacement is the result of state abandonment and the lack of security guarantees. The group has denounced the murder of 11 people who signed the peace process and one of their children. In view of this situation, they demand dignified treatment and that the government of Iván Duque respects the peace agreements. In this context, Rodrigo Granda, who is in charge of the Commission for Monitoring, Promoting and Verifying the Implementation of the final agreement, denounced the continuous threats and murder committed against ex-combatants.
We continue to denounce the murders of those who signed the peace agreement. 217 former FARC guerrillas murdered, and also from the People's Movement, from human rights defenders. Now the extreme right seems to be adopting a new tactic, threatening personalities. There is talk of threats to the Archbishop of Cali and the governor of La Magdalena by Hernan Firaldo's paramilitary forces.
In Venezuela, Miranda and Capital District states enter a full isolation phase due to COVID-19 spikes in recent days. President Nicolás Maduro said that the measure is intended to protect the health of citizens. That is why the state of Miranda, with nearly 900 COVID-19 cases, and the Capital District, with over 1,000 infected, enter this phase. The Health Minister, Carlos Alvarado, said that the increase of COVID-19 cases is due to those entering the country through the illegal border crossings. The Health Minister also said that 85% of cases in Venezuela are asymptomatic. Venezuelan authorities have reported 303 new cases in the last 24 hours, increasing the number of infections to 10,010. Prime Minister Mia Mottley has been commended for the kind of leadership in the COVID-19 pandemic that has in recent weeks earned her rock star status in the international media. Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, said people around the world had come to see that women's leadership in the COVID crisis had made a profound difference. Mohammed noted how observers continue to highlight those women leaders' qualities that have made for effective leadership, such as clear communication, compassion, inclusion, evidence-based policies, and the courage of conviction, before inviting the PM to make her presentation on the UN-sponsored event Rights for All. The interactive forum, supported by the UN Office for Partnerships, gathered influential women to look at how their leadership is shaping the COVID-19 response and the efforts to build back better. The government of Trinidad and Tobago has delivered the first agro-processing park this Tuesday in the village of Moruga. According to Prime Minister Kit Rowley, the initiative aims to diversify the economy and to provide economic spaces for businesses to grow.
In Trinidad and Tobago, some of the best pineapples are grown in this country. So then, why are we importing pineapple if we have the potential to grow and to supply to those pizza toppings? This is what this factory shell means.
And we'll be back right after the break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Today, the COVID-19 death toll worldwide is 582,320. According to the World Health Organization, the total number of infections surpasses 13.5 million, and half of them are found in the Americas, with more than 7.1 million COVID-19 cases. Europe, the second most affected region, reports over 2.6 million cases, followed by Middle East with 1.3 infections. The surge of COVID-19 cases continues in the Americas as well as in South of Asia and Africa. In the rest of the world's regions, the situation appears to be more stable. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for a commitment to multilateralism to help protect and bolster the global economy as the COVID-19 pandemic has started to cause major setbacks and threaten the livelihoods of billions of people.
I'm not here today to tell you that everything will be okay. We need to be honest with ourselves. The COVID-19 crisis is having devastating impacts because of our past and present failures. Working hours, equivalent to some 400 million jobs, were lost in the second quarter of 2020. And we are experiencing the sharpest decline in per capita income since 1870. Between 7 and 100 million people could be pushed into extreme poverty. And some 265 million could face acute food insecurity by year's end, double the number at risk before the crisis. And the impact of this pandemic is falling disproportionately on the most vulnerable. At a time when we desperately need to leap ahead, COVID-19 could set us back years and even decades, leaving countries with massive fiscal and growth challenges.
The European Commission warns EU member states of a potential cocktail effect that could occur in autumn due to COVID-19's interaction with seasonal flu, and calls on governments to better coordinate strategies to counter a possible second wave of the pandemic.
Since actions converged, the situation, of course, got better, and this is the approach we want to apply in the future. We do not want to see the lack of coordination that that governed the initial reaction of our member states at the beginning of the pandemic. Second,
Vice President Schinas mentioned the interaction of the seasonal flu with COVID-19. Yes, I call it the cocktail effect. And this is something that we may be encountering, that we did not encounter early on in the year, 4 months ago. And we are raising in this communication the need for member states to be prepared for this.
The Russian Defense Ministry said on Wednesday it had developed a safe COVID-19 vaccine following clinical trials on a group of volunteers. The ministry said 18 people had participated in the research and were discharged without serious adverse events, health complaints, complications, or side effects. In a video released by the Defense Ministry, researchers Svetlana Voloskhina said that the volunteers' immunity was working well, antibodies were being created, and that they are protected against the coronavirus. A second group of participants who were vaccinated on June 23rd are currently in isolation under medical supervision. Some 160,000 people in the Spanish region of Catalonia went back into confinement on Wednesday as authorities scrambled to control a fresh surge of COVID-19 infections in the area. Just after a judge approved the regional government's stay-at-home order for residents of the Lleida area, about 180 kilometers west of Barcelona, tensions rose over how to handle an increase in cases in a suburb of the Catalans. This northeastern region of 7.5 million people is seeing the biggest number of new cases in Spain. Quim Torra's regional government has urged people to comply with all the measures it announced on Tuesday, including restrictions on gatherings of more than 10 people in their neighborhoods of L'Hospitalet, a Barcelona suburb that is home to around 260,000, even though another judge struck down that measures overnight. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern outlined on Wednesday her government's plans to tackle further outbreaks of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ardern stressed that a system of local or regional lockdowns will be put in place and that a national lockdown will be a last resort.
Priority will be to control any cases with the least intrusive measures and over the smallest area we can. In practical terms, that means doing absolutely everything possible to avoid the entire country returning to alert levels 3 or 4 as a measure of last resort. Our stamp it out approach is scenario specific, meaning that our actions will depend on the severity of the situation. And of course, when we see the first COVID-19 case beyond the border, you can expect us to move very quickly and very firmly to contain it while we gather information on the situation we're facing.
Vietnam has gone through 90 days without any COVID-19 community infections. The National Steering Committee for COVID-19 Prevention and Control reported on July 15th that Vietnam has not reported any local COVID-19 case over the last 3 months. Among the 373 total active cases, over 230 were imported and quarantined upon their arrival. Several recent cases are repatriated nationals, which prevents the country to declare itself free of COVID-19. Tokyo Governor Yuriko Koike issued a warning on Wednesday about the escalating spread of coronavirus infections in the Japanese capital, requesting residents and business owners step up preventive measures.
Regarding beds for moderately ill patients, we have requested medical institutions to secure 2,700 beds in line with Level 2. In addition, due to the increasing number of asymptomatic, mildly ill patients in the younger generation, we will open 2 new accommodation medical facilities tomorrow, on 16 and next week. Please avoid going to restaurants that do not have adequate infection control measures. Avoid using shops that are not sanitized, ventilated, or where people don't wear masks.
Renewed restrictions took effect in Hong Kong on Wednesday as the Asian Financial Center battled a resurgence of COVID-19. The decision comes after the city recorded 52 new confirmed COVID-19 cases on Monday, of which 41 are believed to have been locally transmitted. Public gatherings are once again restricted to 4 people after the limit was eased last month to allow up to 50. Restaurants are limited to takeout after 6 p.m. and mask wearing has been made compulsory on public transport for the first time. Those not wearing a mask face fines of to $650. About 300 new cases have been reported since July 6, including more than 220 non-imported ones. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, signed a bill on new sanctions against the People's Republic of China for allegedly oppressing freedom of speech under the national security law in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region.
Today I signed legislation and an executive order to hold China accountable for its oppressive actions against the people of Hong Kong. The Hong Kong Autonomy Act, which I signed this afternoon, passed unanimously through Congress. This law gives my administration powerful new tools to hold responsible the individuals and the entities involved in extinguishing Hong Kong's freedom.
On Wednesday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Junjin says China strongly opposes Britain's ban on Huawei.
英方到底想不想保持它自己的独立的地位？
Does the United Kingdom want to keep its independent position, or does it willingly sink to become dependent on America and become America's dupe? The United Kingdom, with no concrete evidence, under the pretext of risks which don't exist at all, has cooperated with the United States to discriminate against, oppress and exclude Chinese enterprises, blatantly violating principles of the market economy and free trade, breaching promises that the United Kingdom has already made and making a wrong decision, severely damaging Chinese companies' interests and seriously impacting the basis of mutual trust for China-UK cooperation. China strongly opposes this. The United Kingdom's choice to ban Huawei will harm the United Kingdom's own interests. The world is big, the United Kingdom is relatively small. I think no matter what, this ban will not prevent Huawei's development and growth.
Welcome back to From the South. In a further move, Ethiopia has started on Wednesday filling Grand Renaissance, a giant hydroelectric dam it is building on the Blue Nile. The decision was addressed by the Ethiopian Water Minister Saleshi Bekele a day after talks with Sudan and Egypt over the structure became deadlocked. The failure of talks on Monday sank modest hopes that three countries could resolve their differences and sign an agreement on the dam's operation before Ethiopia begins to fill the African largest dam. Addis Ababa had previously pledged to start storing water in the dam's vast reservoir at the start of the wet season in July when rains flood the Blue Nile. The signing of a partial peace deal between the Sudanese government and the alliance of armed groups has been delayed, the mediation committee announced on Tuesday. The partial agreement was the result of negotiations between the Sudanese authorities in Khartoum and the armed alliance, which includes the Sudan People's Liberation Movement, SPLM, the Sudan Liberation Movement, and the Justice and Equality Movement. However, the agreement excludes some of the influential armed groups in the country. The agreement was due to bring to an end unrest between the Sudanese government and groups in Darfur and South Kordofan, among other areas of the country. The United States has closed 5 of its military bases in Afghanistan as part of an agreement signed with the Taliban in February. The 5 closed U.S. military bases are located in the provinces of Helmand, Uruzgan, Paktika, and Lakhman. The agreement provides, among other terms, for the staggered departure of U.S. forces, which began in March, but it was suspended due to the COVID-19 crisis, according to Washington sources. There are 8,600 U.S. troops in Afghanistan, more than 14,000 who have remained in that country since the invasion and 2001 subsequent occupation. Kenyan health authorities report a record number of new COVID-19 cases in a single day this Tuesday, while calling not to stigmatize those who have been infected.
We need to remember that coronavirus is a disease, and getting this disease is not a crime. And those who are infected with this disease are not criminals. And therefore, it is important we note that this virus can indeed be contracted by anyone. The high and mighty in society and everyone else in society, we've repeated over and over again, anyone can get this disease. And so it's important that we take care of each other and we avoid stigmatizing those who have the disease or those who may be affected by the disease.
Demonstrations took place in Israel on Tuesday to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Thousands of Israelis gathered in front of Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem after over 1,400 new coronavirus cases were reported, bringing the total to over 42,000. Protesters expressed their frustration over Netanyahu's response to the pandemic, his economic policies, together with the pending cases against him for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Prime Minister Netanyahu is due back in court on July 19th.
We came to demonstrate, to protest, because our country was stolen, our democracy was stolen. Dictatorship rules are being passed here. He, Benjamin Netanyahu, is charged with bribe, fraud, and breach of trust. Yet nobody talks about it. It is no deal with it. He formed a government with no legitimacy.
This country is going to collapse without the possibility of salvation. The mental harm is far worse than any physical harm and any disease. Above all, the state needs to take responsibility for the people who are standing here and help them. This current situation cannot continue. The Likud is being driven by money, power, and honor. It shouldn't be like this.
Somali President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed reaffirmed support and commitment of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development Organization to peace in South Sudan.
The IGAD-wide economic challenge is one that we must all assess and learn vital lessons from as we seek to enhance regional economic collaboration going forward. To ensure that IGAD Secretariat is well prepared for the post-COVID-19 reconstruction and recovery, we must expedite the agreed institutional reforms and restructuring of IGAD in line with our earlier agreements. This is a crucial priority that we must see through to ensure the effective operation of our organization and to strengthen it to respond to the serious regional socio-economic and security challenges ahead.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and also Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Ernesto Dominguez. Thank you for watching.